right. I really fell in love with all these books here.
Hey besties, it's Bestie in the Bookish, and we are going to put Mr. Bestie on the spotlight tonight. He is going to share some of his books that he's been reading lately. He's been on a reading roll, so we're going to get to hear his thoughts on what he's been reading.
I will start with The Black Farm.
He was listening to this while we were in bed, and I was like, are you going to be okay listening to this?
I ended up really liking it. And apparently, it's part of a genre of horror called splatterpunk, which I did not know was a thing. I guess this was my first introduction to splatterpunk, which it's pretty intense. So there were times where I wanted to my stomach felt sick. There were times I was cringing really hard, but I did enjoy like the plot and the way the pacing of it moved and the world that it built. I felt like I really enjoyed. So I did not know what to expect after that first scene.
Yeah. This was more of a religious type of book.
Without any spoilers, it's like a type of place that's in between heaven and hell, and it's not purgatory.
Okay. Interesting. What kind of themes do you think really hit home with that one?
The main character takes a look at like how selfish he was in life, and he wants a second chance to be better with his wife and help take care of her. He wanted to be better at enjoying life versus thinking about how miserable they were in life. So that was good. I felt like it, with all of its gore and guts and blood, it had a pretty good redemptive arc in it. That was one that I liked a lot. That might have been that saving redemption. I was like, oh, this is so hard to read.
Yeah.
Ugh. I feel like it had really good action in it, actually. The way it was written is almost like if it was an apocalypse, but it wasn't an apocalypse. Okay. I don't know how to talk about it without it being spoilery with like in the first chapter. My next book would be Tender is the Flesh.
This was a Bestie bookshelf recommendation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Bestie bookshelf recommendation.
If you're not familiar with the Bestie bookshelf, it's my little Facebook community that I have filled with wonderful individuals, and if you are not already in it, I highly encourage you to join it. The link is in my bio. Continue, sir.
Okay. Tender is the Flesh. It's another one where people are like, "Oh, if you like horror books, this is horrific," and it was horrific. I wouldn't say it's scary, but it did have some stuff in it that made your skin crawl, that made your stomach turn over.
That is called body horror.
Body horror.
Trent has fallen into different
subgenres of
horror in 2024.
I really liked it because the main character is a guy who has like a traditional job, and then he's still doing that job, but it's done in a way that is just difficult to believe it could happen. Like, so Marcus's job is he works for a slaughterhouse. So they bring head like of cattle in there. They process humans that were raised in captivity only to be eaten. You get a good look at every aspect of the cattle industry. The only problem is that the processing is not cows.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So that part, that's the part that'll make your skin turn over in there.
I remember you telling me, like, as you were reading it, that
I would forget.
You loved the world, like the way, like you would love
some of the people he interacts with. Sometimes when you play video games, you come across like quirky characters that are like bad guys, and you have to fight them. And the boss fight is based on like their own weird talents and specialized weapons or whatever. he meets all these different people that are heads of different,
like departments of the
yes, they're
processes.
different processes of different things. Like there's a place that does the hide. There's a place that does the mating. There's a place that does, and all of them have like a cringy, disturbing character that runs these places. I mean, you would have to be like a
because
creep,
they love their jobs.
and they didn't do those jobs before with regular cows. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so Marcus, his father was like ran a slaughterhouse, and he was running it when all of this happened. And the way they made money for their family was to transition into this next phase of
Cattle.
meat processing.
Ooh.
Cattle, yeah. They talk about humans in a way that you forget that it's humans. Like they'll be talking about cattle, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, that's how that works." And then you're like, it's humans.
Mm-hmm.
It's still humans." So there's that. I really enjoyed it. It doesn't ever drag on at any points. Like it's pretty straightforward. It's a quick read. It's got some twists and turns. And then his view on the whole thing is he talks about how sometimes he's talking about how cringy all these other characters are, and he doesn't really talk about how he's still running the slaughterhouse processing facility. Those are the things I liked about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Let's play a game.
Okay.
We're gonna play a game called Guess the Plot. I kind of warned him about this before. So I'm going to name a book on my shelf that I have already read, and he has to guess the plot based solely on the name. And it's going to be a book I have not talked about.
Okay, yeah, I hope so.
So the book I've chosen is How to Be Eaten by Maria Adelman.
I am such a guy.
Hold on. Should I show you the book?
Yeah, I'll show. Let me look at the art.
Okay.
Oh, that gives too much away.
That's the book, How to Be Eaten.
The Big Bad Wolf.
But what is it about?
Red Riding Hood.
That's it?
Shadoy.
Red Riding Hood.
Let's see. All right, I'm gonna go based on the books that you read.
I gave this book 5 stars.
What'd you rate it for spice?
I'm not telling you. It was like a bell pepper.
Oh, it's not where my brain went at all. Red Riding Hood is actually the hunter, and she comes across a werewolf, and she ends up getting trapped by the werewolf. She tricks the werewolf, so the werewolf catches her. Now she's the prey, but she's also the victim, where she's been the huntress for a long time.
You're
and so then
deep
it's
here.
so then it's like the same plot as Black Snake Moan.
Like a revenge plot.
Yeah.
Like a deep, what is it? Deep undercover revenge plot.
Yeah. To get back for her grandmother with great big eyes.
So you weren't wrong completely that there's Red Riding Hood in this book.
Oh.
And it is a retelling, but
Red Riding Hood was the grandmother.
It is not only Little Red Riding Hood in this book. This is about multiple women from various fairy tales that go to modern day group therapy for the things that they went through in their fairy tale.
Oh.
And their modern day retelling. How to Be Eaten.
The next one is 12 Mighty Orphans, and it was different for me because I read mainly horror books, and so this one was more of a nonfiction book. It's about a story about an orphanage that existed in like the 1920s up until 2003, I believe, when they closed the doors. But during the Depression in West Texas, if something happened and a parent died, the other parent couldn't take care of all the kids they had and work at the same time. So they would just give all their kids up for adoption. So this little family in West Texas, the dad is like a bootlegger and drinks a lot, and he messes with the wrong people, and so he gets shot. And then the mother is like, "Oh, what happened to your dad?" The main character sees it when he's a kid. That's how it opens up. I think the back of the book says after the death of his father and the abandonment of his mother, so and so is taken to the orphanage. But 12 Mighty Orphans, it's got sadness, Depression age era, Nazi Germany era. It doesn't have Nazi Germany, but some of the kids went off to the military when they graduated. So 12 Mighty Orphans. There's 11 spots on a football team, and the orphanage has their own football team. The football team would take 12 kids and go play schools that were way bigger than them, that would have like 40 people on the sidelines for backups, where there's only 12 of the Mighty Orphans. So there's 11 playing in one backup. They would play in Amarillo and around Dallas, and they would play all of these bigger schools, and they would go and whoop the tar out of these bigger schools. Basically, it's the story about how their orphanage had no money. They had the worst gear, the worst transportation, and to make things worse, it was in the 20s and 30s during the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good for being nonfiction, real part of history.
It's very interesting.
Texas football, depression.
Yeehaw. Hit us with another one. Another one.
Heart-Shaped Box was another one I really enjoyed, and it was written by Joe Hill, which I Stephen King's son. And I love this one because it had jump scares that literally made me go, oh, what the f-?
Lots of jump scares.
Lots of jump scares. It does really good at building up the dread of some of the ghosts in the book. It makes the entity seem like at any time it could be done for the main character.
So this is like a paranormal horror?
Paranormal horror, jump scares, because the ghost just like shows up and scares the main character all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. The main character is like a dark and gloomy sad boy, sad man, because he's kind of older. He's probably like in his late 40s, early 50s, I think. But he was in a band that was like Metallica, but it was before the emo
Definitely
days.
40, 50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Generation X. Where y'all at? Shout out in the comments if you're Generation X, dude.
Let's do another guess the plot.
Okay.
Traders of Eden.
Ah,
So this is the book. He has to guess the plot.
Traders of Eden. This is a prequel to Hannibal Lecter.
Does that sound like something I would read?
No. Not only in the Garden of Eden were there snakes that talked to Adam and Eve, but there were fairies that also talked to Adam and Eve. And the fairies were who betrayed the snake to get the snake to betray Adam and Eve, and they all got thrown out. And so then the fairies, they got thrown out, but they got to keep their powers and different artifacts from Eden.
Wow, this is a really good
And
story.
the fairies have to go on like an artifact quest and collect all of the different artifacts that were from Eden in order to restore the Holy Land.
The book is only 297 pages.
They're gonna have to expand that a little bit.
You were not wrong about the Fae. This is Fae. On a Fae's 25th birthday, they have to go to the kingdom to have a test done to see how powerful they will be when they
reach their Fae
maturity. Their maturity, their adult span.
Fae.
Okay, and there is a 50-50 chance that they could die from this test.
During the test?
Yes. Our female main character ends up surviving her test. When you survive the test, that means that you get a seat to become one of the honorable Fae, which is basically like a royal seat.
So this is like a Fae aptitude test.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And so then she earns her
aptitude test.
You get a seat among the royals, the other royals can come for you. So she has a target on her back. You don't know what any of the other royals' powers are. They keep it a secret, so you don't also know their weakness.
So it's like Fate Stay Night meets Fairies meets Gossip Girl meets Game of Thrones.
Means Game of Thrones for sure. It's just a very good. And they tell her that someone is a traitor to the gods, and that is where the Traders of Eden comes in.
Bum, bum, bum. Silent Patient was another one of my favorites. Somebody told me it was a horror book, and so I went into the book expecting horror, and it's not really scary so much as suspenseful thriller. Mm-hmm. It weaves some what I thought was pretty good plot from two different perspectives, weaves them in well, and how they tell the story and how everything unfolds. It's done really well. It keeps you guessing and trying to figure out what's going on. And
now, when you finished the book, did you feel like you're like, oh man, that was a phenomenal book, or did you have to sit on it before you were like, oh shoot, you know what? Now that I think about it, that was a really good book.
When I finished it, I didn't have to sit on it. So when I would complain to you about it, it's because I was waiting for something scary to happen, like paranormal or anything, and it didn't for half the book. So I was kind of like irritated at first, but the more I read it, it was very thrilling. I didn't know what was going on at times, but which is good for a thriller. That's exactly what the book was trying to do. It really capitalized on that, and it keeps you guessing till the end, and it was just really good.
Sounds like a really good
one
thriller.
Of those things where like the twist in it, you're like
jaw dropper.
Yeah. 2 honorable mentions. No, I have 3. The Fisherman, which is about 2 guys dealing with grief and loss, bond over fishing together. So they go to a place called they hear about a special place to go fishing, like a good fishing hole, a good fishing spot called Dutchman's Creek. The author of the book is known for writing short stories. So basically, he combined 3 short stories. There's like 3 parts of the book where it's talking about the 2 guys and their loss. The second part is telling short stories about Dutchman's Creek. And then the third part is like them going fishing there. It kind of slows down a little bit because a big part of the book is them talking about the ghost stories of Dutchman's Creek, and it drags on a little bit because you want to know more about the main characters after he gets you invested in them in the first part of the book. So that part drug on for me, but I think it fit the author's style, and he did a good job of like making a good full book with the style of short stories intertwined into it, which I thought was good for him. The next one, Butcher and Blackbird. After I listened to this book on the way to a wedding, Jasmine's reading her book, and I'm just like, "You read this book? What's going on in this book?" And everybody in on her live said that I would never look at ice cream the same again. Honestly, I forgot about that. I've had ice cream since then. I didn't think about it,
No.
but
It still was just like,
it's a
ah.
fun book. The action in it wasn't copied from other horror movies, but the ideas were taken from other places. The author does a good job of
Kind of
making it
making it.
her own. I accidentally jokingly guessed the ending of the book. Do you remember that?
Yeah. But I spun it and I was like, no.
Yeah, so you did a good job.
He didn't know. And then he was like, oh, I guessed it.
Yeah, and I guessed it kind of early, like halfway through the book.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm glad she didn't tell me because that would have ruined the rest of the book.
Yeah.
You didn't, not once when I guessed it, did you go, you guessed it. You're like, you idiot. Why would you guess that?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, Trent. Why would you do that? It's not even, it doesn't make any sense. And then what the hell did I just read is the third book in the
John dies at the end.
John dies at the end, but you don't have to read any of those books in order. You can just pick one up and read it. 3 main characters battle different paranormal things that happen in their town. And so in this one, it's got some interdimensional travel. They're trying to track down a being that's basically trying to move in on Earth and try and take that over. They're trying to save people. It's really good. It's just it's all over the place. It's got a lot of adult humor. If you have ADD, it'll keep you invested, I think, because it's all over the place enough where it doesn't drag on very much anywhere throughout the entire book. Not once does it drag. The minute you think it's going to drag, it switches gears and does something else, and you're like, what is happening? I did enjoy it. That was my last one.
Hey, you did so good.
Thanks.
Mr. Bestie, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. And if you would like to see more of Mr. Bestie on the channel, let us know in the comments what kind of videos you'd like to see us do. And have you read any of the books that Mr. Bestie talked about? If you have, we'd love to know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video. I love you. Bye.
But holy. Red, yellow, red, wicked.
You put the cube in my chest.